would make sure you type your name in there, and that way I can just pull the roster off that, give you your points. You won't have to worry about answering any type of question if you're on here live. So I just pull the chat log at the end, and it's that easy. So while you guys are doing that, I'm gonna go ahead and do my screen share and kind of get set up here. So again, hope everybody's week is going well. Here we are Thursday. It's week 6 for this course. As this is one of the few that is the full semester, the practicum courses. So semester's going quickly. Before we know it, we're going to be coming up on spring break week. So pretty quick semester. So my screen share should be popping up now to where you can see it. And so basically, I'm just sharing a picture screenshot of the syllabus. Just kind of we'll start off just looking at what all does module 2 entail, what are going to be some things that you're responsible for. And then I'm going to go ahead and even look ahead and kind of give you just a short, brief overview of module 3 and kind of what we will jump into coming off of spring break. So module 2 is looking at high leverage practices, what we look at high leverage practices. So module 2 is also fairly short. It's 6 weeks, or I'm sorry, 3 weeks. So it'll be week 6, week 7, and week 8. So this week kind of focuses on with the readings and some things that resources are in the course shell on evidence-based practices. And we're covering those or having you look at the information and study that because when we get into the case study student part of the assignment for this course coming off of spring break, that's when we're going to kick that in. One of the things that you'll have to do is after you do the overview paper of your 2 case study students, the second part of that case study will be to develop a tier 1 lesson plan, which will be applicable to all students if you had a full classroom, not just the 2 case study students. But it's also going to ask you to identify and implement some evidence-based practices as far as interventions. And in the following assignment, which will be part 3 of the case study, we'll be doing tier 2 and 3 resources in lesson plan, which, as you guys know, tier 2 is more small group, and then tier 3 is that one-on-one intensive intervention. So just kind of reading up, learning about some of those because you will be able to utilize that information when we get into the case study and you're working on those lesson plans as far as that assignment. But for module 2, we do have some things coming up this Sunday. So the teaching reflection number 2 is on there. I know, I think there was some confusion. There was a couple different dates for a discussion board assignment. So I just, it's like, hey, we'll just make it due on the 2nd as well to avoid that confusion. And so there will be a discussion board assignment. It's discussion board response 2 on disproportionate representation. So the dates conflicted. Had the 23rd in the syllabus. And in the grade book course shell, it said the 2nd. So I just left it the 2nd. Had some emails. I think I even posted that in the announcement section. So no one's going to be late for that. Just know we'll have 2 things due this coming Sunday evening. Okay. So that will be the discussion board on disproportionate representation. And then also the teaching reflection, the second one. Okay, so some of you guys have already posted those, and I've already went in there and scored them on you. I did some of that again this morning too. So some of you guys are already have yours reviewed. So we have those. One thing we are going to look at toward the end of the Zoom this evening is I'm going to pop up a document, a resource document that's in the course shell for week 6. And it's kind of going over some differences between accommodations and interventions. Okay. And a lot of times students going into special ed, where the confusion comes in is they oftentimes confuse accommodations and modifications. That's where a lot of times they kind of connect those together, which there are some distinct differences on that. But we're going to focus tonight, talk briefly about accommodations and interventions. Is what we'll get into before we get off the Zoom. Then looking ahead, week 7, which is part of module 2. It's more or less a continuation of the readings that are listed in week 6. Okay. We'll just kind of continue reviewing that information. And you will have a tab in there that shows some tier one resources for you to review that will help you when we have to do that lesson plan of the case study. And then also, it'll have a tab in there for tier two and three resources that you could use and implement into your lesson plan. So really the readings that are listed up here on week 6, I'm kind of circling that area with my cursor, my mouse cursor. Those resources will continue on down into week 7 and 8. Okay, so that'll be your focus. So there's not really anything new during week 7 and 8 as far as readings. The remaining assignments for module 2, you'll see on Sunday, March the 9th, is the practice quiz, the third one. It'll be due that Sunday evening by midnight. And then the following Sunday, which will be taking us right up into spring break week, which will be that Sunday, March the 16th, you'll have another practice quiz, kind of a tongue twister. The fourth one, and then also a third discussion board response, looking at or focusing on evidence-based practices. So that third discussion board down here will be kind of asking you to write a reflection, give your thoughts and ideas based on some of the readings up here in week 6 from those resources. Okay. So this is kind of a short overview of module 2, week 6, 7, and 8. Nothing real heavy on that as far as assignments. But no, when we come back from spring break, I want to look at module 3 because that is when the case study student assignment or project starts. So when we have our Zoom meeting 3, which will be week 9 on that Wednesday, we're going to really dive into the case study, but I'm just going to kind of give you an overview. So looking ahead, if you look in the syllabus, the first thing it's going to ask you to do is pick out 2 students as part of that case study that you can work with. They can be 2 of your own, or if you don't have a full-time resource room, it'll ask you to work with a SPED teacher in your building to perhaps borrow or utilize a couple of their students from their caseload. Most of you are already in that special ed classroom, so you technically could just use your own students, okay? But if you're not, that's an option for you. So selecting those and starting to do just some basic observations of them, maybe popping in, doing some informal observations on them, or taking some time to observe them in your own classroom, document some of the things that they do, some of the behaviors you're seeing, some of the challenges, just some things you notice from day to day. So part 1 of that case study student project will be to provide a student overview paper, given a description of those 2 students that you selected. Okay, and we'll jump into that more when we come back from spring break, but I just kind of want to get those seeds planted in your mind. So start thinking about a couple of students that you think you would like to work with that would be good for this project. Start thinking about that. Then if you want to go ahead and kind of get ahead of the curve just a little bit between now and before we go on spring break, maybe just start going ahead and doing some observation on them and just taking some notes and have that. So when we come up from spring break, you're already that far ahead and you can sit down and start drafting up the student overview paper. Okay, just a suggestion if time permits. I know some of you guys maybe your IEP meeting load is heavy between now and spring break, and that may not be feasible to do that. But if you can work it in, it would just help you out and get you a little bit ahead. Okay. So we'll have that coming back off spring break. And then after you submit the overview paper, then we'll jump right into and have you develop the tier 1 lesson plan. So that is just going to be a lesson plan that could be applicable to an entire classroom, not just your 2 students, but as we know, tier 1 is applicable to a large group, right? An overall class. And we'll get into a little bit more of that as well when we come back from spring break. We just kind of want to go over what is coming up ahead so you can start thinking about that. After you do the tier one lesson plan, you'll have basically a week off where you won't have anything really that's due. And then you'll come back week 12 and you'll have to submit a tier 2, 3 lesson plan. So basically, if you remember, 2 and 3 is really more centrally focused on smaller groups, and then the tier 3 is going to be that more one-on-one. Okay. But it's one lesson plan for tier 2 and 3. Okay. So I'll back up and clarify. You will have a student overview paper. That's part one. Part two will be a tier 1 lesson plan. Part three would be what we consider the tier 2, 3 intervention. That's a lesson plan in itself. Okay. And then the fourth part will be where you take and you teach a lesson based on the lesson plan you developed, and you'll record yourself and post that amongst your peer group. So just kind of give you an idea of what's coming up so you can start thinking about it. But I would strongly encourage you guys to go ahead and pick you out your 2 students you want to work with, and maybe go ahead and start doing a little bit of observation if you can before spring break, just to kind of have that and have it out of the way. Okay. Next thing I want to do, I'm going to stop this screen share and I want to pull up the document if I can retrieve it quickly. Screen share again. On the interventions versus accommodations page, I want to share that with you just so we can go over that. Get back in here real quick. It'll be popping up for you here in a second. There we go. It'll pop up and it will go right back to the syllabus. I'm going to exit out of that and go to the document that is in your course shell. We have the assignments tab. If I can get it to pop open for me. There we go. Seems like it's slow doing it. Screen share. There we go. You'll see it's listed as lecture, the difference between accommodations and interventions. So I'm going to try to get that to open so it'll share with you, kind of look at it quickly. It's loading. Okay, it's popped up on my screen. Can everyone see it on yours? Okay, see Brittany's got a thumbs up. Again, this document is just kind of a brief overview. It is in there under module 2, so you can actually access it, but I just wanted to show you where it was at, share it with you. So in looking at a multi-tiered system of support, oftenly we term it as MTSS or RTI, response to intervention. We look at different levels of support. So you have tier 1, we talked about it, general education, accommodations, and interventions, whole group. Okay, so basically the accommodations to instruction and assessment, they're still getting the same instruction as all the other students. Okay. Basic accommodation that we're talking about means the teaching support needed so that students can demonstrate they've learned successfully. Okay, this could be any type of adjustment to the learning environment or the delivery of the instruction to promote learning. Okay, it could be anything from extra time on assignments, reduced work, reading an assignment orally to the student, using manipulatives, graphic organizers, study guides, written notes, technology, any of that falls into the accommodations. Anything to help general teacher provide that instruction. Intervention can happen in what we call tier 1 or tier 2, 3 case. Tier 1 is for all students, not just students that are maybe on an IEP. Okay, so it's for the whole class. Then we jump down to tier 2 and 3. Okay, gives just kind of a brief summary of that. This is more direct support for small groups. It's more direct targeted versus just entire groups. So interventions are in addition to and do not replace tier one. Okay, so it's literally adding to what we did in tier one. Interventions are supplemental and they explicitly target the student needs and IEP goals. And so it is intervene is to come in between to alter the course of the events. Okay. So it could be interventions can be described as a set of teaching procedures, maybe packaged curricula that we implement. Uh, the thing is, we want to make sure that we're using something that is evidence-based, and that's why week 6 really focuses on that with a lot of the resources that are going to be available to you. We want to make sure it's something that's going to be evidence-based, that is practical and applicable to students, and that we know is going to work. Okay, so I just wanted to share that with you briefly. Where a lot of confusion comes in is when we start talking about modifications versus accommodations. There are some distinct differences there, but this particular document is talking about accommodations versus interventions. Okay, so we just want to keep that in mind. Again, I want to encourage you to really dive into those resources that are listed in week 6, that the resources there provided for week 6 is also what you will focus on for week 7 and 8, okay, to help you in preparing. So if you look at, again, just briefly going over that, the second module is a little bit light as far as any major significant assignments. You'll have the discussion board post due this Sunday, as well as your peer group teaching reflection. Remember, it has a specific prompt, what I did well, basically what worked, what I did well, maybe something I need to improve on. So it provides that prompt, and you go down through there and just kind of reflect on your experiences the last few weeks since you posted the first one. Okay. I'm going to start my screen share, see if anyone has any questions. Remember, after spring break is when we will jump right into the case study. We'll take that and break it down and work on that parts 1, 2, 3, and 4 together. Okay. Between now and spring break, if you can, you don't have a lot of IEPs and things that's going to be occupying a lot of your time. Again, I would encourage you to go ahead and pick out your 2 case study students and also maybe jump in there and do some observations between now and spring break and just document it. Okay. We come back off the break, you'll have that. You might need to do one more observation, but you should have a great start there to go ahead, and you'll be ready that first week after spring break to go ahead and start drafting that part 1 assignment for the case study. Okay. Just something to kind of maybe work ahead a little bit or get ahead of it, help maybe reduce some stress. Who knows? Some of you guys, you may be IEP loaded after spring break. It just kind of depends. It varies. So one thing I do want to clarify, and I will post this in an announcement. Okay, there's been some confusion about looking at older information regarding the praxis number that you need to register for as far as the praxis quiz when you go to do that. So I just kind of want to clarify that the number on that you will need to do is 5355 on the praxis, okay? The previous one that we focused on before the course shell changed and the courses changed a little bit was a completely different number, and the state of Kansas did away with that. Okay, so that number you need to look for is the 5355 when you get ready to register. I just wanted to throw that in there to avoid any confusion. I will also post that in the announcement section as well and post that, and then it will send you an email along with that announcement. Okay, that way, if you forget and you can't remember that number and you get ready to register, you can pop that up and it's right there. Okay, if you are already scheduled, sometime during this course, you get your results in, send those to me. And if there are any remaining quizzes, practice quizzes, I'll go in there and add your points. You won't have to do that. And then remember, if you take it, pass it, get the results to me, you're exempt from the final. You don't have to do that. And I'll go in there and give you the full credit for the final. Okay. So I have had some send me the results. Some I know are scheduled in the upcoming weeks. So don't forget, if you take it, you get your results, send those to me and I'll add those on for you. And you won't have to worry about that. One less thing to take care of, right? Or stress about. Any questions about what we have the next few weeks before spring break or kind of what we're looking at when we return? I just kind of want to go ahead and jump ahead and just kind of go over that quickly so you would know what is in the future as we come back. Really, from spring break until the end of the semester, it'll all be on the case study regarding your students.
Um, so since I'm a middle school teacher, like I have three different classes of kids that I see twice a day. Would it be best for me to choose like two kids in one class, or would it be best for me to like separate them and maybe do like a sixth grader and a seventh grader?
For this particular project, I would do two that's in one class.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I think it will make it easier on you, Brittany, when you get ready to have to film yourself delivering that lesson.
Okay, that's kind of what I was figuring. Like when I was thinking about the students that I wanted, they were both in my
Yeah.
like one class because definitely don't want to have to do two of each.
Yeah, no,
So,
no, no, no. I think it would just make it easier for you. And if anybody else is in that kind of same predicament and you don't know, I would advise you to try to get the two students that are in the same class because I think when you get ready to do the video recording portion, it'll make it easier on you. And even looking ahead on that video part, and I think I maybe mentioned this the first night, it is that part of the case study is really more designed to be a teaching tool for you. And the reason I say that is, and I use this example the very first time we met, and I kind of talked about the assignments. You will be very surprised when you go back and watch that. You'll have kind of an aha moment. You'll realize, oh my gosh, I didn't realize I did that in class. It really is. And we've talked about that in previous 822s. Various semesters, and I get that response all the time. Like, oh my gosh, Dr. Posey, I did not realize that I did that in my classroom. And I think I even shared the story with you. I had one teacher that she really struggled in this particular, with this group of students, trying to connect with them. She's like, I've just racked my brain trying to figure this out, and I just cannot connect with them. And it just seems like we're just butting heads all the time. And when she went back and watched her video, I watched it too. She told us, she's like, I threw this out in a Zoom session one night about I cannot figure out why. And she's like, you know what? I went back and watched that. She's like, heck, I wouldn't want to be in my own classroom. I watched my body language. I didn't realize I presented myself this way. She said, my body language is not good. Heck, if I was a student in my room, I wouldn't like me. And so it was kind of an aha moment for her. And I use this example too. Athletic coaches do this all the time, right? They film games. Football games are filmed. Football coaches, what do, they go and break down film over the weekend. They play Friday night. A lot of times they meet Sunday in the afternoon. They break down game film and get ready to prepare for the next week. In the heat of the moment during the game, they might be doing the same thing and getting the same results, which are not good, and they don't see it. They're caught up in the moment. And then when they go watch that game film and break it down, they're like, how did we not see this? If we just made this one little adjustment, that could have been a game changer. Basketball coaches do it. So a lot of coaches do it, and I always encourage teachers, go in there and video yourself a couple times this semester and just go back and watch it. Other things you're going to see, you're going to maybe pick up on things in your classroom environment that you never even noticed. Common thing that I've got before. I had no idea my classroom was so noisy. She said it would drive me nuts. I understand now why the students are distracted. There was all this background noise going on. Those things could be easily fixed. May make a big difference in the classroom with your students, especially if they're easily distracted. So again, it's more for you than it is for me. It's a great teaching tool, and you can go back and just self-evaluate like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it did this, or I didn't realize I did that. Or my body language sends this message, even though I don't feel that way, my body language is portraying a different message. So little things like that might make a big difference with your kiddos. So it'll be interesting once you go back and look at it. Okay. Any questions before we go? Just more of a touch base tonight. Remember, we will meet on Thursday night of week 9. Week 9 is the week we come back from spring break. Okay. So it's listed on your Zoom deal. If you look, it correlates with the breakdown in syllabus. So that is the week we return from spring break. So I'll say this before we go. If I don't hear from you between now and spring break, you guys have a great spring break, get some rest, re-energize, and then we'll see you back here on week 9 and we'll jump into this case study and get this thing going. And that will take us all the way through the end of the semester. Okay.
Uh, Dr. Posey,
Yeah.
Amanda Schneider was trying to get into the Zoom thing and it wasn't letting her in. I just told her I'd let you know.
Okay. I'll write her name down here. I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, no problem.
I had a quick question. And I don't want to take anyone's time, but I just wanted clarity on just really on the comprehensive portfolio, which you said is more of just like finding comps now. I just want to make sure we'll address that or get that completed in this course. Is that right? For that requirement for
All that
graduation?
requirement, yeah, will be taken care of. Right. Yeah.
Okay, through this course, we will fulfill that requirement. We won't have to do like anything outside of this necessarily. Okay, awesome. Okay. It's stressful, this like stuff for graduation. I'm like, I want to make sure I'm getting everything
Now,
done
I
that I
will tell
need to
you guys
do.
this
So,
too. Okay. So, I'm gonna go ahead and